Hello everybody, this is a 2012 Chevy Silverado. This is the one that I actually replaced the spark plugs a month ago and came back with another problem. This time it's going to be more involved than just the spark plugs. Unfortunately, this is the AFM engine, active fuel management. It's a 5.3 liter engine, and the engine developed a ticking sound, almost like it's actually loud. It's almost the same as a rod knock. And the code wise we have map sensor performance, and then we have it's a P0106 map performance. These two are actually related because of this code here, P3400 cylinder deactivation system. And so right away we know what the problem is. Basically one of these cylinders had a collapsed lifter. So at this point actually we can go ahead and start tearing the engine apart and see, taking the cover off and see what the deal is. But before I do that, I'm going to start the engine. I'm going to have you guys listen to the sound that it makes, and then we're going to actually use a first look sensor. We're going to adapt the first look sensor into the intake manifold just to see actually what kind of pulses we're going to have from intake. Setup wise, I'm going to use an access from a purge valve. I'm going to pull this hose off, and this is going to give me access to my intake manifold. It's kind of nice, it's right in the middle of it, and I'm going to use my first look sensor. I'm going to install that into the intake. Where did it go? And then I'm going to use one lead. I'm going to put it on a channel 1. It's going to be a blue channel, is going to be a first look sensor. As a sink, I'm going to use a secondary ignition waveform from cylinder number 1. Again, this is not necessary. We can just go ahead right away and start taking the valve cover off and see what the problem is. But I think it's a good opportunity to see, because honestly, a couple of years ago I had a same truck. It kicked my butt all weekend long trying to figure out what the deal was, because this lifter was failing only with the engine running. He wasn't failing with the engine cranking, and didn't making the noises this one makes, and it was very, very aggravating to figure out what the deal was. But if I would have my first look sensor in my intake, I would find the problem much quicker. So let's just go ahead and you know, do a little bit of just to get some waveforms and see what the bad one looks like, and once we fix it we'll see what the good one's supposed to look like. And I think that's, I hope you guys will enjoy this. And I'm just gonna get my lead to the ground here. So I'm getting my Pico ignition probe. I'm just gonna put that actually on the cylinder number 1, which is this one here. I'm going to make sure that my leads are not tangled up. And this noise does increase as you rev the engine. At a higher RPM, the noise is more noticeable, it's louder. It's a little bit crowded since on this side of the garage it's a big truck, so alright. I'm going to start the truck first to just have you guys listen to that sound that it makes. Channel 1 will be a first look sensor, and I'm gonna go maybe 2 volts. We'll see how it goes. We can leave it on DC. And then the channel 2 is gonna be my let's do half a volt. We will sync it off the channel number 2, but I don't want to use the sync right now. I want to get the waveform on the screen first, and then we'll go from there, because I may have to manipulate my ignition probe to get a better ignition waveform. Okay, now I have to move my ignition probe because I absolutely don't see any waveform at all. I had to actually move it to cylinder number 2 because I am just too far from 1. Actually, you can see it's much better. I'm just gonna flip this waveform real quick. We don't really need it. I mean to flip the waveform, but this is just gonna be the sync. And let's go to a. I'm gonna go to auto, and then we're gonna go to channel B. And now we can stabilize our waveform here. Now we can actually, what I made, this is a mistake. It is actually right now it's upside down. This is our dwell time. It's supposed to be go down, and I need to move that back to normal. We're gonna go here. Okay. And now you should be able to see. There you go. Now we are having the 720 degrees of crankshaft rotation in this area here between the 2 ignition waveforms, ignition events. And I'm going to change my scale on my okay, and we can see here that there's discrepancy here and there's a discrepancy here. I'm going to move my time. It's actually interesting. See that? So right in here, our waveform, our pulses should be pretty much the same, like this, like these 3. But there's one here, and there's a one here. Actually, interestingly enough, they repeat itself all the time. So definitely, there's something going on with a upper ceiling, because we have these repetition in anomalies in our waveform. And then here, 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 and there's also. So this could be actually a reflection of this problem here. I'm not exactly sure. But what I'm going to do now, the point is you can see that there's a repetition in the same spots, so to speak, here and here and here, and as well as here and here and here. And now when we look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, basically 8th pulse is missing. We should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's one pulse that it's basically missing. It's not there. It should be. Now that we have upper ceiling issues, and I might actually put the first look sensor into cylinder number 4 just to see what's going on, and then we go from there. Already have some coolant hoses removed, and disconnect all the coils on bank 1 and bank 2. I got the spark plug out of cylinder number 4, got my insular pressure transducer in it. Why am I suspicious number 4? It's because when I actually didn't show you the guys, I had my stethoscope and I was going from one cylinder to another, and I think my noise is coming from number 4. And let's just look at the waveform. By looking at this waveform, I believe my problem is actually on the exhaust valve. And the reason I'm saying that is because if it's an intake valve, this pulse would be much more pronounced, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong, we'll see. But you know, from my experience, what I've seen, if there is intake valve shut, you know, there would be an excessive drop of intake pressure, so this pulse would be more pronounced. So we'll see. And now I'm just going to change. I'm going to change this to let's see here, our pressure transducer. Again, none of this is really needed. I mean, we could just go ahead and pull the cover off, but I want to see, just for sake of our knowledge, and you know, getting the waveforms and see what they look like and all that stuff. And now I'm gonna actually take out, I don't need a, and let's go to 200 psi because we do cranking, and just to see what our waveform looks like. Well, I was expecting to see this waveform going up. That would indicate a this part of the waveform where the exhaust stroke is. This would indicate a excessive. I mean, that would indicate that the exhaust valve is not opening, but that's not the case. But we should. This part is where intake valve opens. This should not be there. So this is a problem here. Seems like we have a problem on the intake valve. But the pressure is actually 190 psi, but this should not be here during cranking. It's maybe, I mean, it's like enough air, because if it doesn't, we would not have this much compression going on. And that's interesting. But these two should be the same, and they're not. This is excessive vacuum here during the intake stroke. Minus like 20 inches of mercury is way too much. I don't know. I'm still learning about the waveforms. Well, let's just do number 6 and see what we're gonna find out. I'm sure some of you guys, oh, look at this, look, it's obvious what the problem is. Well, we'll see. I'm on number 6 now. So let's see. I'm gonna actually bump this a little bit, and let's see number 6, which is again the one that is involved in the AFM system in this bank. So number 4 and number 6. I can actually feel inconsistent cranking. There's a low compression on one cylinder, and so let's go here, and this is more like it. This is more what we should actually see during cranking. We should not see that excessive vacuum during the intake stroke, and so we are definitely on the right track to having an issue on a number 4, and yeah, we should. On the first waveform, we had a 20 inches of vacuum on this number, on number 4. So that number 6 is okay, and the compression is actually lower. It's 174. All right, so that's it. We're gonna. I'm still a little confused. I'm not sure now. It drives me crazy. You know what the valve is actually faulty. Is it intake or exhaust? I mean, it's got to be intake at this point, actually, because exhaust, we should see excessive pressure during the exhaust stroke if the exhaust valve it's not working correctly, it's not opening. But again, by looking at the first look sensor, I would expect to see more pronounced pulse, a loss of pressure in an intake during the intake stroke on that cylinder. So anyhow, we'll see what happens. Well, I just made a pretty stupid statement saying that we can see inconsistency in the cranking, indicating, you know, low compression on cylinder number 4. Well, of course, because my spark plug was removed, so that was kind of stupid. I was like, oh my god. So, anyhow, you should see now what's going on. And of course, compressor kicks in. Alright, ready guys? Let's see what we got. It's not a sludge or anything, so okay, so there you go. Alright, it is cylinder number 4. That will be an intake valve. Yeah. So the lifter on a on intake so the lifter on a intake valve did collapse, and it's not pushing the our rocker arm, and the push rod is just freely moving, and number 6 looks okay. I mean, yeah, number 6, number 8, those are regular ones, they're fine. It's number 2 is fine as well. Okay, so I was wrong. I was honestly thinking that my exhaust valve is problem, but it was its intake. But when I looked my first look sensor waveform. Part 1 and in part 2 I'm going to start getting everything apart, and should be able to fix it this weekend. So. Alright guys, see you in part 2.